Okay, so Brian, am I moving this one? Yep, I am. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is apologize for the misspelling. Our graphic designer is in Ohio, and when she did this for us, it came back with one quick misspelling, and I tried to get her to do it fast enough, but with the time change, we didn't quite make it. So, here we go. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. So we're going to talk today about a couple of things, and part of what the Stephan Center does, and Judy, I'm sure, is going to keep me on track. But I want to ask you a couple of things first. How many of you this week, or in the last couple of weeks, have misplaced your keys, or your phone, or your eyeglasses? Okay? Yeah.
All of the above.
And there's a certain amount of anxiety that goes along with that, right? But also, and you don't have to raise your hand for this, but just reflecting. How many of you have had to move, whether you wanted to or not? How many of you missed an event that was important to you because you couldn't afford to go, or there was something else happening and conflicting? Probably at our age, most of us had a parent die, or both parents die. We may have had a child die, or a spouse. We retired, and when we thought that was going to be wonderful, after about 6 months, we found we were bored to death, and we didn't know. We were trying now to figure out how to unretire into something purposeful. Okay? All of those things, those losing the keys and placing your eyeglasses or something, are considered small traumas or losses, and we recover them pretty quickly. But they can be larger losses if losing your keys makes you miss an appointment, a medical appointment you've been waiting 2 or 3 months for, and now you can't reschedule it for another 2 or 3 months. And those other losses I just talked about are what we call major losses. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today in relation to the Stephan Center and what we're trying to do to address some of those challenges that we all experience. So this is a common situation. It's not something that's unique to one group, one nationality, one part of the country, one group of people. So we'll talk a little bit about a few things. Everyone experiences trauma and situations. Everyone grieves that trauma. So even when you miss your keys or your glasses, you go through a mini grieving process. And we don't realize that, we don't think about that. But first you get frustrated. First you go, I can't be. You know, I always say when I miss something, I'm the only one in the house. How could I be missing something? You know, it's only me putting it somewhere. But we go through that little mini grieving process, even for what we consider smaller grieving losses. When people have a consistent support system, when they're going through a grieving process, they're able to go through that process and find healing and move on. Their life will be changed. Every loss we have changes our life in some way. We are never the same person after the loss. But when we have a support group, when we have a consistency, we have people we can count on, we have faith, then we are able to develop the resilience and the healing power to find a way through that. Not around it, not under it, but through it. And come out on the other side a different person, a better person, and also aware of what we're called to do in the next part of our life. But not everyone has those consistent, stable, supportive environments. And when they don't, whether they're children or adults, they get stuck. And they find other ways, usually not helpful ways, to try to work through that pain of that trauma and loss. And I believe that your group worked with a halfway house for women coming out of prison. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So every woman had gone through severe trauma and loss and didn't have any kind of consistent support system to help them process that. And so the choices they made led them down different paths. Okay, come on. Okay, Brian, what am I doing? Am I holding it the wrong place?
Well, it's behind you. One, it's that way, but
Point it the other
just
way.
point it the other way.
Point it this way. Oh, try again.
There it goes.
Oh, did it go? Okay. So let's talk a little fast about trauma and loss, because you're going to find some similarity here. Nationally, 1 in 12 children are going to have a parent die before they graduate from that child graduates from high school.
Yikes.
In San Bernardino County, that's 76,000 children. And we have no consistent method of supporting those children. I got a call from a school counselor yesterday. A 5-year-old's mother has just died. Father only speaks Spanish. He was looking for therapy for his 5-year-old. We don't do therapy for 5-year-olds in the traditional sense. We use play therapy. There's not one certified play therapist in the Inland Empire.
Oh, Lord.
You have to go to Orange County or LA. 33% of seniors will become widowed. That's 93,000 seniors in San Bernardino County. 95% of incarcerated people, adults, have been abused as children. There are 6,000 children in foster care just in San Bernardino County. And that's not even counting children who are living with their grandparents. And you may know some of them. You may have friends who are raising their grandchildren. And in many cases, those grandparents get those grandchildren because they were babysitting for the weekend and mom and dad never came back. And we work with grandchildren and we work with grandparents on a regular basis, every month in fact. And they often don't get into the system because they're afraid that they may get their own children in trouble, or that because of their age, the child may be taken away from them and put into foster care. So now they're grandparents trying to do this on their own, oftentimes with limited income and resources. And 46% of our population in San Bernardino are direct immigrants.
Or what?
Which means that they're not just first generation, they have arrived.
Wow. That's
So-
huge.
Yeah, that is huge. Because there's about not quite 2 million people in San Bernardino County. So, okay, let me see if I'm doing this right. There we go. So, what's the challenge? Our challenge is to help all people who are going through trauma and loss. We need systems that can support them. These systems need to be culturally and sensitively and affordable, and they need to be trauma focused and age appropriate. Mixed match of counselors and therapists who are trying to do their very best, but we do not have a system, a comprehensive system. So who are we? We're the Stephan Center, and yes, that's also my last name. But we weren't always the Stephan Center, and in fact, our incorporated name is not the Stephan Center. Our incorporated name actually is the Children's Preschool, but we never bothered to pay the money to change the corporate name, so Stephan Center is what they call a DBA, our Doing Business As name, but that's the name we're known as, okay? So we actually were incorporated in 1973 as a private children's program from preschool through 2nd grade. And our original philosophy was based on something called, a philosophy out of England called Summerhill. How many of you were teachers or in the field of some, either early childhood or K-12 or, okay. So some of you may know Summerhill?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Yes.
In the 70s.
Yeah, well, exactly. See, 1973. And so it was a child-directed educational environment. It was also the first one to do inclusion with the local regional center. We were based in Los Angeles. And so we took in children with special needs. We took in children with hearing losses, vision losses, and autism, when nobody really was understanding autism. And so we did that for quite a while. And then some of those principles, some of those philosophies of education started getting incorporated in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s into the school systems. And so we moved on. And so in 2010, we took the program and we changed it, and changed the focus, and changed the mission, and changed the name. So we've been around for a while, just differently. So what do? We do a variety of things. Our board made a commitment that we would not compete with other agencies working in trauma and loss and grief. That we would look at what was missing, and we would develop programs that filled those gaps. So one of the things we found was there wasn't a centralized information. So we started a website. And it's a pretty robust website. It has information, it has resources, it has articles. We now have a page just for fathers. We're in the process of a translation project where we're translating everything into Spanish. We now have a special Espanol page. We have articles, we have books. Our resources are divided by types of losses, and that's the other thing that our board made a decision on. We are not death-related and death-directed exclusively, because trauma and loss is not only death-related. And I belong to a national association called the National Association of Grieving Children. And I work with organizations across the United States through this association, but they are all working with children, because they're all with children. They're all working with children who have had a death in their family. That's not the case with us. We have a monthly themed newsletter. We have weekly social medias. We have educational programs. We have a Healing Through Art program, an annual live theater program, and we have a 3-part series for widows. So we'll talk a little bit about these. So that's just kind of an overview. We also have something called a Consoling Ministry program, and this actually was the first program we started, because the first thing we said is, where do people go when they've had a loss? And if they have a faith community, they go to their faith community. But faith communities weren't doing all that well in supporting their members. And I learned this when my husband died. And I went to my faith community, and I didn't get much support. And I had 2 sons who were in their late teens, and they had no support. So the first thing we developed was a 3-part ministry for faith communities, all denominations. And it has 3 ministries: ministry to the sick, a bereavement ministry, and what we call an aftercare or companion ministry. So if you're interested in learning more about this, because we are on a time thing, I can show you where that. We're currently doing this with a church in Texas, actually.
No.
Because one of the things that happened with the pandemic is we had to stop doing them in person. And so in the back of our mind, we wanted to build it into a virtual. So this past year, that's what we're doing. Whoops.
Pretty.
What's that? Oh, right. We love tech. So, you know, we are in the faith community, so we'll talk a little bit about that relation while this gets fixed. We had in the back of our mind we were going to change the Consoling Ministry program. Can you hear me if I walk?
No.
No. Okay. Better. I'm used to teaching, so I'm used to walking.
Take the microphone with you. Take the microphone with you.
Well, that's okay, I'll stand. And so we had this in the back of our mind. All of a sudden, we got a call from this church in Texas who, one of the people had learned about our program when she was in California and now wanted to bring it to her church in Texas. At the same time, we use interns in our programs. And I got a call from a young woman who was in a theology program in a college in Ohio but lived in Temecula. And she wanted to do an internship out here. And, you know, it was like, you can't even deny these things. I mean, you know, you can say I don't believe in God, but okay. There are no coincidences, right? So Georgia's been doing her internship, converting all of our materials into PowerPoints and virtual training, and we're now in the second training session, the bereavement session with this church in Texas. And then after Easter, we'll do the aftercare. So it's a pretty extensive program. We do it in English and Spanish, so all our materials are bilingual. Okay. So we have professional training because we also looked at, you can work from the bottom up or you can work from the top down. So we decided we would be more effective if we trained more professionals in understanding trauma and loss. So we've developed some programs. So we have a 24-hour trauma-informed certification program that's 12 modules, and it's self-paced online. We have online classes that are 2 hours long. And these all meet professional development requirements, licensing requirements, certification requirements for educators, social workers, counselors, you know, all the fields. We have free virtual classes for foster parents and relative caregivers that we do in partnership with Riverside City College. And we have a Father Speaking Out program, which is geared for men who are fathering. And it's a video series, and there's 6 videos. It's also online. 3 are in English and 3 are in Spanish. So, okay, we got that. So we got the Consulting Ministry program going, we got the Professional Development program going, and then we said, okay, what else is missing? Well, a lot of talk therapy, and we were now kind of starting into the pandemic, and we realized there are a lot of children who are just having a lot of problems. And talk therapy, sitting a 5-year-old down or a 10-year-old down and trying to talk to them just doesn't work. You know, and I've done that as much as a school counselor and working with children in trauma and stuff. So we partnered, it's over here in the lower right-hand corner. We partnered with the Art Association, and we created a Healing Through Art program, and it's in its 4th year now, 4th year. And it's an after-school program, and we have 3 age groups, 5 to 7, 8 to 12, and teens. And they come in, they work with an artist in different art media, but everything we do also involves exploring their emotions and finding ways to heal through art. And they each get an art box to take home that has art media in it so they can duplicate it home what they're learning in class. And then we come alongside, so the artists do that, and then we come alongside with the parents and provide resources on grief and loss and trauma and various types of loss. So just yesterday, because we're wrapping up our winter series, I went through to check the losses, because parents self-support register into children, although I get referrals from school counselors and therapists and foster homes and everything. But we track the losses of the children. And this session, 45% of our children are in foster care or have been adopted. 35% have experienced a death in the family, a parent or a sibling or a grandparent. Then we have children who we have 18% of children whose parents have been deported. And then we have a couple who are dealing with anxiety. I don't remember the other categories, but those are kind of the major ones that popped out on me. So that's the Healing Through Art program. Up in the upper left-hand corner, we have our Walking a New Path After Your Spouse Dies. It's a virtual 3-part program for widows. We started that during the pandemic. It's kind of a precursor to those longer support groups like Grief Share that goes 12 weeks. Because a lot of people shouldn't even know what they're doing. They don't understand what's happening to them. And so to sit with a bunch of other people, in a group and start sharing, they're just not ready for that. This is kind of a psycho ed, and we try to explain what's happening. And we just do it in 3 2-hour sessions. some of you are teachers. Anybody a librarian in here? Okay, got a good group. We started this live theater evening for at-risk kids. So we get kids who are in our Healing Through Art program, we get kids in foster care, we get whole group homes coming to it. We do it once a year in partnership with the Children's Theater Program. They put on the performance, we raise the funds to support it because everything's free. And the children come for an evening at the theater. So it looks just like going to the Amundsen. They come in with their caregivers, we have volunteer ushers, they get a program, they get seated. It's in a beautiful old turn of the century theater in Corona in the original school. So if you remember what the original school auditoriums look like, this one's beautiful. And so they get seated. At intermission, they come out, they have refreshments. And then the little light things, and they all go back in, and here's the second half. And then when they come out, it's all youth theater performers too. So they come out and sign autographs, and we give every child a new book. And the book's aligned with the theme of the performance. It is a huge hit.
I bet. How many people attend?
350 is what the capacity of the theater. So we do that once a year. It's coming up in May. Last year it was the Lion King Jr. This year it's Newsies, but it's a Disney version of Newsies. And then we do something called Baskets of Love. Again, this is a partnership with a mother-daughter volunteer program. People who know someone who's going through a trauma of some sort can contact this group, and they will find out a little bit about the family or the person, and they will put a basket, just kind of a love basket, a care basket of things that person might like, and then we come along, and based on the type of loss, we bring the resources. And they add the resources to the basket. And so that's our Basket of Love project. So those are some of our special projects. And most of these are free. Walking a New Path has a small fee because they do get a book and some other materials as part of this. The professional education programs all have a cost to them. Okay, so this is our information and resources. I kind of reviewed this before. So our website, as I said, it's pretty robust. The e-newsletter comes out every month, and it's got a theme, and it's got some different corners. So we have a family corner, we have a senior corner. So there's always an idea or activities for seniors to do that all deal with losses in life. So if you're having trouble getting out of the house because you're more homebound, as a senior, we give you ideas on how to stay connected so that you're not feeling isolated. Family, there's a whole bunch of stuff, plus all the programs that are coming up. So for instance, our foster program, our parent program for foster parents, we have classes every single month. So then in the newsletter, the classes that are coming up. Or if a new program's coming on board, like Healing Through Art, we'll start promoting it in March because it starts at the end of April. So all that's in the newsletter. Our social media platform, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Pinterest, we're on LinkedIn. And so you can find all sorts of materials, information. We have posts every single month around the theme of the newsletter, and that also includes books that link to that, so you can find books to read both for adults and to read for children and with children. And then weekly we offer mental health and foster parent tips. And again, they just come into your whatever social media platform you want, and they're just reminders of how to stay mentally healthy. Or in the foster care thing, how to support foster children and the traumas they're going through. And so you can sign up for any of those on our website. So how can you help? Okay, so let's stop here. You have questions? Did I cover everything you wanted me to cover, Judy?
I'm impressed with the scope.
Yes.
What I told my friends was, you and I have been friends through child development for a long time, and we reconnected a few years ago, and now you were doing all kinds of other things. So now I see how that happened.
There you go. So we just, things kind of evolve.
Yeah, but it's impressive that you can go, you can see that what you were doing is now covered by somebody else and there are giant gaps still to be filled.
Mhm. So, any other questions or thoughts or comments? Okay. They told me I had to keep under a certain amount, and
You're fine,
I'm past it, I think.
you're fine.
So how can you help? Visit our website and learn what we offer. Because that's a good way to share it with other people. Everyone's experiencing trauma and loss sometime in their life. So if you know that their website's here, as you run across a family member or a community member or a congregational member, you can link them to our website. Sign up to receive our e-newsletter and our social media posts. Share our agency programs, services, and the website with others. Become a sponsor of a program or service. Most of our services, all the services to children are free. And so we have to raise the funds somewhere. We've got community partners, we've got foundational funding, you know. I have to tell you, in all honesty, grief and loss is not a sexy topic. So there aren't a lot of people who fund this.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to even talk about it. Judy, I think Judy met my mother a couple of times.
Yes.
My mother happened to be a university professor, and she was very supportive of what we were doing, except she would say to people, Vicki does that sad work.
Oh.
But when I talk to our team and I say, you know, what's the words that you would use to describe what we do, they say, we do hopeful work. Because we show people that they don't have to be defined by their traumas and losses. There is a path through this. And there is other things in their life they're being called to do. And they can learn from the trauma and loss and take that knowledge with them to help others. So we don't think it's sad work. We think it's hopeful work. So you can become a sponsor, or you can bring a program or service to your church or agency, like this church did in Texas. So our quote, one of our quotes is, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted."
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
You're based in Corona.
We are based in Corona.
You're talking about San Bernardino County. We're in LA County. How do you limit your services to one county or one area, or?
We have a fact sheet, and I could mail it to you. We have last year's annual report, and it's in a one-pager. It's much easier to read.
That helps.
We actually work internationally, nationally, and regionally and locally. Because our website is used internationally. And it's one of the things that drove the Spanish translation project, is that we were getting hits. We had just a few articles in Spanish, like maybe 3 or 4 things that were in Spanish originally. And we were getting so many hits and downloads of those materials from Mexico, Central America, Spain, South America, other Spanish-speaking countries, that when the board started looking at that data, they said, oh, we need to do something. So we have a couple of partners who are helping us underwrite the expense of doing the translations. And the other thing we're tracking now is, and I've already just seen it in our website data, is we're getting not only more hits from those Spanish-speaking countries and Spanish agencies around the United States, so not just out of the country. But about 25% of our website use comes from out of the country.
Wow.
Just because there aren't that many resources. So we're tracking the new, and we're already seeing that people are starting to already look at and download the new articles in Spanish that we posted. We posted about 20 new articles in the last 5 or 6 months. And so we work with teams, our infrastructure. We have a facilitators team who facilitates our programs. We have what our board calls a digital design team. I love that name. And it includes our graphic designer, our web manager, and our social media manager. and so they make it a team. Then we have our administrative team, and now we've added our Spanish translator. And we expanded our facilitator team and added a Spanish facilitator, Spanish-speaking facilitator this year too. So anyway, and then we work with interns. We work with interns from the University of Nevada in Reno, both on-site and virtually, and that's one of the reasons they like us. So we have projects that their interns can do off-site. And we've also worked with the University of Louisiana, and we're working with St. Francis College in Studenburg, Ohio, I think it's called. Anyway, so we have a team of interns that work with us, and then we have volunteers. So that's pretty much it.
What's your greatest need?
Well, the first top thing that pops into mind for any nonprofit is money.
Okay, for what?
But resources, so resources. So, yeah, going back, every program that we give away free has a price tag.
Right.
So, the live theater program to put on costs us about $5,000 between the books and the cost of the theater and all that. The Walking a New Path, although we charge a small fee to the widows, it doesn't cover the cost of delivering the program. So that costs about $2,000 every time we put it on. We put it on 4 times a year. So it depends. I mean, we can provide that. We have sponsorship levels that groups can partner in. And you can choose a particular program, or you can just sponsor the agency at a certain level.
And we need that information.
Pardon me?
We would like to have that information.
Sure,
I know you can provide it.
I can provide that. This was an introduction.
I get it. And I told my friends that you covered a wide area, but wow.
And I use San Bernardino County because, in all honesty, I wasn't sure where you were on the border of LA and San Bernardino, because I know Pomona gets split.
We are on the border, yes.
Yeah, so that's why I use San Bernardino
That's
data. But we also serve in Riverside. For instance, the Healing Through Art program is in Corona. We basically serve Corona and Alfred Unified School District children. The virtual programs can be, the Walking a New Path for the Widow program, we've had people from New York, we've had people from Minnesota, we've had people from Arizona, we've had people from Idaho, who hear about it, see it, and because social media goes out all over, and so people find us. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Do you guys do any fundraising for your programs?
Not that traditional type of fundraising, and that's probably kind of a personal bias of mine. We mostly work in sponsorships and partnerships and grants with foundations or other, like county offices, or and contracts. So the RCC contract funds, pretty much funds our foster program. But we haven't done like those galas, that kind of thing. I've been in this field of nonprofit for a long time, and I'm actually in a leadership training program through IHP's foundation right now. And I just find that that's a lot of work for we're a relatively small agency and a relatively small staff. And I would rather see our staff put their energy in delivering programs directly to those in need, and develop partnerships with other entities that have funds that they can give to us. I think it's more cost effective. And so that's kind of been our philosophy. So we haven't done those traditional kind of fundraisers. We've just really looked for partnerships. Any other questions? Okay, I'm done. Thank you.